All right. Huh. I gotta put this down before we start recording. I want to get going because I got a game to watch. Yeah, it's on my phone. I don't have it in the show notes yet. I'll just throw it to you and you can take it from there. All right, just got to double check my show notes, make sure they're up to date.
Okay, works.
Man, I almost wanted to take a drive out that way just to see some of the damage.
Oh, man. Terrible. You know, our neighborhood's fine. There's no problems here.
Yep.
But about a mile from here,
it's a mess.
It's yeah, and three miles. It touched down in several different areas. You know, like a spinning top.
Yep.
And it just yeah, it. I mean, it really messed things up around here for a while. McLeansville, really in general, got
pummeled.
Well, not as bad as some other parts of East Greensboro. I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
But close by here, there was severe damage. People got killed. You know, one
person got hit in a car, right? Or
yeah,
3 fell in a car.
Yeah, I heard another guy died. He was riding a motorcycle or something. I don't know. You hear all kinds of stuff during this thing, but I can tell you that I didn't do any watching of hockey or anything. I referred to my cell phone a couple times, but yeah, I wasn't able to watch Sunday night. My wife, she finished cooking us dinner, and we sat down to dinner. And as we were taking our first bites of dinner, whoo, the whole thing cut down. It did not come back on until Wednesday.
Wow.
Oh, the Sunday that it was, I don't know, 50 hours maybe. I don't know.
Did you lose any food?
We threw away some stuff, yeah, but not as much as it could have been.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been a lot worse. So, but that's all gone, and today's trash went. So everything's gone, and we've changed over, and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
So.
All right, I'm gonna hit save on the show notes, and you can reload if you want to. All I did was I added a story that came up today on the suspension of Nashville player. And then I added the stuff about the World Under-18s that we'll talk about.
Okay.
So no big deal. All right, let's get going. Let me start the recording here. Hey, you need to go away. Not right now. All right.
Okay.
All right, ready? Hello and welcome to what episode are we? Episode 33 of the Hockey Nuts podcast.
That's exactly right, Wayne. That's what I got down. 33, Wayne.
Of season 2, of course. This is episode 78 overall.
That's right.
We have had an interesting week since the last time we've done a podcast. We've had a lot of playoff games to watch. We've had tornadoes come through. Well, at least close to one of us anyway. Yeah. You had a close call. I didn't really. And I missed the whole thing. I was at work all day that day, so it was just another day of work for me.
Yeah. Those tornadoes are a little different, you know.
Yeah, they certainly get your attention when they come floating around your area, don't they?
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick.
Sure.
Sunday, of course, Sunday afternoon. It was kind of looking ominous. I'd say Sunday after church, maybe,
Yep.
And so we are at home. We were at home doing yard work and everything all day, and we sat into dinner around, I don't know, 5 o'clock or so, and it was like sheets of rain hitting the house. You'd hear a big splash of rain against the house, and then it'd calm down, and then the wind would blow, and it'd be another splash of rain against the house. You know how that is.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, oh God, I don't want the storm windows, or hope protect us, So, and then all of a sudden, my wife, she brings up dinner, and we were going to watch dinner, and we were getting ready to, spend time in front of the TV, watch some playoff hockey and all that stuff. And the next thing I know, boom, the power just shuts down. So, and it doesn't flicker and come back on. It's wiped out. So, little did I know, we finished our dinner, but in the dark. But little did I know that the power would not come back on until Wednesday.
Wow.
So
3 days.
I tell you,
3
what
days
a great. Oh yeah.
3 days you were without power, so you've missed a lot of hockey.
It was a little over 2 days, Wayne, but
yep.
it was a long time.
It feels like forever when you're going through it. That's for sure.
It does. It can get your mind. It really can. But
especially
terrible damage in East Greensboro. Really bad damage. Some people had some terrible damage to their homes. Many trees and stuff were wiped out, and just you could see where the hurricane kind of danced along. It's like a stone skimming on the water when it's not real powerful.
Yeah.
It hits in a certain area, and then it bounces up and it goes somewhere else, and it comes down again and it hits. A tornado's a different type of a creature. So
yeah.
But anyways, it's behind us, and I'm back, and I'm able to do a podcast, and I'm excited, and it's good to be with you, Wayne. I'm telling you, really good to be with you this week.
We've got lots and lots of playoff hockey to talk about. So, and a couple of series. To my surprise, I didn't think we'd have anything done by the time we got to the next episode. But lo and behold, we've got 2 series that are complete that we need to talk about. So we'll get to that. But yeah, it's just been a great week. And for the couple of days that you were without power, you missed some great games. I don't know. This is just a whole lot going on. So let's actually get right into it. We'll go through all of the playoffs, series by series, probably is the best way to take it. And then we'll just discuss each series as they come up, and then we'll go from there. And then we'll get into some of the news stories that have happened around the hockey world this week. And, of course, we've got some, as usual, we've got some minor league hockey to talk about, and we've got, of course, our picks of the week. So no college hockey minute this week because college season is done. And the thing with U.S. college hockey, once their season is done, it is done. There is nothing going on in the world of college hockey once they award the national championship. And a lot of that has to do with the NCAA rules. There's a lot of rules pertaining to all of college hockey where they can't practice until a certain date. And, it's basically the off season, and it is completely hands off, and all the players are just doing nothing but focusing on school at this point in the year. So,
right.
So yeah, college hockey, there's not much to talk about. We probably won't talk about it again until probably get into September anyway, before any news to speak of comes up. So let's get into the NHL playoffs, shall we?
Let's do it.
And the first series we need to talk about is Tampa Bay and New Jersey. And just to recap, since the last podcast, of course, our last podcast that we did was just before the opening night of the playoffs. So every game that's been played in the playoffs at this point has been played since our last podcast. So we've got to get everybody caught up on all the series. This Devils Lightning series they've completed 4 games so far in this series. Game 1 was a Tampa Bay 5-2 win. They pretty much won that one going away. Game 2 was a 5-3 win for Tampa Bay. Both of those games on Tampa's home ice. Game 3 shifted to New Jersey, where New Jersey came out on top 5-2 in that game. So now we're looking like a the home team wins all the games in this series. But in Game 4, Tampa Bay put together a nice road effort and ended up winning that game 3-1. So although every game has been decided by 2 or more goals, the games have been pretty close up until the closing minutes of the game, for the most part anyway.
Right.
But my impression of this series is, with the exception of that one win where New Jersey came out and put together a real solid effort and beat Tampa Bay. New Jersey has pretty much owned this series, so they have a 3-1 series lead right now.
Yeah.
Over New Jersey, and the big takeaway there is New Jersey's goaltending or overall team defense hasn't been all that great in this series. Corey Schneider, I've seen him have much better seasons and play much better than he has. But it's a learning experience for New Jersey. They're a young team.
Right.
They weren't expected to make the playoffs.
Right.
They got a lot of players on their team that have never played in the playoffs before. And some of these guys are veterans, like Taylor Hall, for example. He's been around for many seasons now, and this is his first experience in the playoffs. So it's one of those old adages in hockey is you got to learn to lose before you can learn how to win.
Right.
So, and I think this is one of those growing seasons for New Jersey.
Right. Wayne, real quick, just my thoughts on it. It's not surprising to me.
Nope.
I haven't seen New Jersey really come out in this series. They're playing a better team. The Tampa Bay Lightning are solidly better than New Jersey on the ice, on paper, however you want to look at it. The Tampa Bay Lightning are the superior team, and New Jersey is a tremendous underdog, not just a small underdog. They might be the worst team in the playoffs. Los Angeles and
Anaheim
are probably better than the New Jersey Devils on paper and as a squad. I would say that both of those teams are better than New Jersey. New Jersey is in this for the first time, and they're, like you say, they're learning how to make it in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens next year. But they should be happy that they got here, that they won a game in the series, and just look to build on it next year. That's my feelings on it. It's a real simple thing.
Yeah. And Taylor Hall, as strong as he was in the regular season, has been kind of quiet here in the postseason, and I think you can't just say he's played poorly. I think Tampa Bay has put a strong focus on shutting him down, and they've been fairly successful at it. Although Tampa's overall team defense has not been all that great, I've seen it play better. Vasilevsky has really yet to play a game where he is, the one of the old sayings is, great goalies will steal a game or two in every series. Well, Vasilevsky's yet to do that for Tampa Bay, and they haven't really needed it.
Right.
But it is, a concern if you're a Tampa Bay fan that Vasilevsky, quite frankly, may be tired. He played a lot of games in the regular season, and he's coming into the playoffs. He looked kind of tired as the season closed, and it'll be interesting to see how long he holds out. And also Steven Stamkos, I can tell just by the way he's playing that he's not 100%.
Right.
So
I agree.
That's also a concern for New Jersey or for Tampa Bay. So yeah, Tampa Bay will probably get by New Jersey without any trouble, but whoever their next opponent is going to be is going to give them a much stronger effort and is going to make it a much tougher road for Tampa Bay in the next round. Whoever that is, it'll either be Boston or Toronto. Yeah.
You'll have a series then. You'll have a series. Wayne, I'm a longtime hockey fan. I see it this way. Hockey, much more simply because it's a lower scoring game, lends itself to different outcomes and whatnot. But most of the time in hockey, when you get past, even in the first round of the playoffs, most of the time you've got a clear favorite that should shine above the others, except perhaps in a 2-3 matchup. But you have a clear favorite. And even sometimes in those 2-3 games, you have a favorite.
Yep.
But by the time you get to the second round of the playoffs, you've weeded out the
weaker teams. Yep.
Right. If there's a weaker team, a lot of times in hockey, they're gone after the first round. Very rarely do you see a weak team. And I'll just give you, I think New Jersey is a weak team. If they get by this round, you almost don't see that in the sport of hockey. You might in basketball. In fact, you might see a basketball team make it all the way to championship. And sometimes in pro the same thing, an underdog, win 2 or 3 games and get going. But you don't see that, in my opinion, in hockey nearly to that extent.
Yep.
Has a number 8 seed team won the Stanley Cup? Absolutely. But again, it's a low-scoring game. If you're a good team to begin with, a very good team to begin with, you could pull something like that off. And I think that's all I'll say. This is a series where you're looking at the better team is winning, and they should be.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, it looks like Tampa Bay is going to roll in this series, and, it's no real big surprise there. Just pretty much all the experts said Tampa Bay is going to roll through in this series. So it's just a matter of when it will happen. But, and speaking of when it will happen, Game 5 is Saturday night. Actually, Saturday afternoon. They just announced yesterday or the day before that it would be a 3 p.m. Saturday game. So that could be the elimination game for New Jersey in that one. If there's a Game 6, that game will take place on Monday, and Game 7 would take place on Wednesday if the series stretches that far. With Game 5 being in Tampa, I don't see this series getting past that 5th game, but
right.
You just never know. That's why they play the games.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to the next series, and that is the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
And this is obviously the one that I've been watching closest because, being a Bruins fan, I've got a team invested in this one. Certainly have a dog in this fight. And this has been a fun series so far. Game 1 went to Boston 5-1. Although that game was much closer than the score would indicate. It was 1-1 till well past the midway point in the game. And then Boston made it 2-3-1. And even then, Toronto was still playing very, very well. And Boston scored their 4th and 5th goals pretty late in that game, pretty late in the third period. So that Game 1, in my mind, could have gone either way. Toronto missed a couple of great opportunities in Game 1 that could have given them the lead when the score was still tied 1-1. I know Mitch Marner missed pretty much a wide open net. He was shooting from a pretty tough angle. He was only a few feet off the goal line, way over on the left circle when he shot, but he shot it behind Tuukka Rask right across the goal mouth, and it just missed the far post. So that one, if he'd have put that one on net, that would have been a goal for Toronto, and they would have had the 2-1 lead in that game had that gone in. But instead, Boston gets the 2-1 lead, and they eventually roll on for the 5-1 win in that one. Game 2 took place on Saturday, the 14th, and Boston dominated this game. It was a 7-3 final, but the game wasn't even that close. They pretty much they took it to Toronto. Toronto looked defeated. They looked, the body language just said, Boston, they were basically saying just with their body language alone that Boston's just way too much for us. We can't handle this team.
Right.
They shut down, Toronto's big line, the Matthews line. They shut down everybody. And Pasternak had a huge game in this game, 6 points in this game. And Boston's top line had combined, I think, 13, 15 points, 16 points, something in that neighborhood. Ridiculous amount of points for one game. So game 2 was never in doubt right from the start. Boston jumped out to a 4-0 lead, and they cruised for a 7-3 win after that. And they ended up chasing Freddie Anderson, and McElhaney ended up playing most of the second half of that game. So, but then the series went to game 3 in Toronto, and Toronto came out with a much better effort. The game could have gone either way. The final score ended up being 4-2 Toronto in that game, but the game was very close right towards the end. Boston missed some great opportunities. I don't know if you saw the save that Freddie Anderson made on Pasternak. When Pasternak it would have been the tying goal if he'd have hit it. Pasternak's over on the left circle, and shot comes in on Freddie Anderson. The rebound comes over to Pasternak, and he basically had the whole net to shoot at. He shoots it, and just as he shoots it, Anderson dives across the crease, reaches out with a stick, and that puck, damned if it didn't hit and it didn't even hit the paddle of the stick. It hit the blade of the stick and stayed out. And that puck came, and it probably reached the goal line and then bounced out. So, because he was reaching back to the net with the stick, and he just made a ridiculous save. Probably the best save I've seen in this playoffs yet from any goaltender. And that would have tied the game there, because Boston was trailing. I can't remember if it was 2-1 or 3-2 at that point. I actually didn't get to see this game live. I ended up seeing it on the replay because I was refereeing that night. So I did miss this game. So yeah, it is my fault. I wasn't sitting in my lucky chair, and my superstitions weren't with me because I wasn't home. I was on the ice reffing. So yeah, the loss was my fault, Bruins fans. So yeah, that game ended up going to Toronto. So now the series, and that's it. That's all they've played so far in this series, is those 3 games. So game 4 is actually tonight. We're recording on Thursday the 19th, and it's actually about 6:15, 6:20 right now. And the game starts here in less than an hour. So as soon as we get done with this podcast, I'll be tuning in the game.
Yeah.
So I expect Boston to come out with a much better effort this time around. I don't think they want to go back to Boston tied 2-2.
I'll tell you, man.
It could go that way. Yeah,
I'm telling you, Toronto is a tough place to win.
Yep, it is.
Whether you're inside the building or outside the building. Yep. They have thousands and thousands of fans in downtown Toronto going to be watching jumbotrons all around that Air Canada Center. So,
yeah, and I would even dare to say that if you want to have label one fan as a more dedicated or quote unquote better fan than another, I think the best fans are going to be the ones that are outside the building watching the game on the big screens that they set up outside the Air Canada Center. The ones inside the Air Canada Center are the ones that have the money to be able to afford those tickets.
Yeah,
but may not necessarily have the passion for the team. That's been the common complaint with the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last several years is because the tickets are in such high demand in that city, and Boston's not all that far off from that either, but Toronto especially, it's very difficult to get tickets there unless you have unlimited resources. I think I saw reports where even upper bowl seats are going as upwards of $500 a ticket. So,
right.
So yeah, it's ridiculously priced. So it's really only the super wealthy that are able to go to these Toronto games, and the real dedicated fans, the true diehards, they're the ones that are at the arena but outside watching the game. Fortunately, the Bruins don't have to listen to those guys because they're outside. So
That's right.
So, but it's still going to be a very loud crowd. It was loud the other night, and it's just a tough place to play. Toronto wins almost every game at home, at least over the second half of the season. That's been the case. And the Bruins are going to need to come out with a real strong effort tonight to be able to put Toronto away and take that 3-1 series lead. I even said, I don't know if I said, I've been saying to people all week, I said, Boston needs to win those first 2 games at home because they're probably going to come back for Game 5 with the series tied 2-2, even if they win those 2 games at home.
Yeah.
Because it's just that difficult to win in Toronto. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Still hoping for Boston to steal a game in that one, and we'll see what happens tonight. So, if the series continues on that far, of course, we will have a Game 5. That one is guaranteed. That'll be in Boston on Saturday. That'll be an 8 p.m. start. That's obviously your Hockey Night in Canada game with the 8 o'clock start. So that one will be broadcast throughout Canada, and that's going to be on NBC, the main NBC channel. So that'll be nationally televised in both Canada and the U.S. that night. And then Game 6, if it goes that far, will be in Toronto on Monday. And then Game 7 will be at Boston on Wednesday, again, if the series goes that far. All right. Anything else you want to add about that series?
No, I think you hit it pretty well, Wayne. And I don't want to jinx your team. So I'm going to leave it at
that. All right. Yeah, well, I guess we'll leave it at that then. All right, let's move on to the Capitals and Blue Jackets.
Yeah, but this has been a very exciting series, and this was the one we were sitting down with dinner, getting ready to watch the game in an hour or two, and boom.
And then you lost the power. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, just to recap this series, Game 1 went to Columbus in overtime, 4-3. Game 2 went to Columbus again, 5-4 in overtime, and both those games were in Washington. So, having Columbus win those first 2 games in Washington puts a real serious pressure on the Capitals coming out of that, because now they're going on the road for 2 games and they're down 2-0 in the series. I've seen teams come back from that before. It can happen. But it's certainly not going to be easy. And then Game 3 ended up going to Washington. Again, another overtime game. But this one went 2 overtimes. And Washington ends up winning that one 3-2. So that series is now sitting at 2-1 for Columbus. Game 4 is also in Columbus, and that is tonight as well. And then Game 5 will be Saturday at Washington. Game 6, if it goes that far, will be on Monday, and Game 7 will be on Wednesday, again, if it goes that far. My takeaway in this is, obviously, with 3 overtime games, basically 3 out of 3 games went to overtime. This series clearly could have gone either way. It could be 3-0 Columbus. It could be 3-0 Washington.
That's right.
With these overtime games, you just never know what's going to happen.
That's right. That's a very good point, Wayne.
It's been a fun series to watch, though. It's been physical. Goalies have played fairly well, although you wouldn't know it from the scores. These are higher scores, 4-3, 5-4, 3-2. Certainly no low-scoring games in there. Bobrovsky has made some terrific saves. The tandem of Holtby and Grubauer have made a fair amount of saves. Although I would say at this point, in terms of goaltending, I'd give the edge to Columbus right now, because Washington, the fact that they changed at least twice now back and forth from Grubauer to Holtby, back to Grubauer, and then back to Holtby again, just tells you that Washington's not happy with what they're getting out of the goaltending.
Right. My thoughts. That is the major problem for Washington in this series. And it affects the whole team. If they stay with Holtby, and I just think that's the right move to do, is to stay with Holtby. Grubauer, if they weren't happy with him and for whatever reason they put Holtby in net, now to stay with him, because switching game after game, you get this game, then I get the next game, they're not going to win the series that way.
Yep.
They're going to get burned.
Well, they've already announced that they're going with Holtby in Game 4, so.
Right.
So and that much is what we know for sure.
Right. I think Wayne I think the pressure on Barry Trotz is so much right now, because I really believe that if he doesn't come out of this series with Washington on top, I think he's gone. I really do. I think that's the end of it for him in Washington.
I think if Barry Trotz doesn't get out of the second round, he's gone.
I agree. But, he's got to get out of the first round first. He's got to pull three wins out in the next 5 games.
Yep.
In the next 4 games, he's got to pull out 3 wins.
Yep.
That's not an easy thing to do against the Columbus Blue Jackets. 2 of them are going to have to be in Columbus. 2 of those games are in Columbus, so he's going to have to win one of those.
Yep.
But I just see it as he's got a tremendous amount of pressure on him, and the team has got to be feeling pressure. Here they are. They won the Metropolitan Division again. Yet again, they won the Metropolitan Division, and they are struggling. And like you said, they could be up 3-0, or they could very easily be down 3-0. When it's overtime games like this, and I know all about overtime games in the playoffs. Believe me, if you're a Rangers fan, you know about them. The lady luck has to shine on you for you to win the series. It's just that way. If there's no more overtime games and Washington can pull it out in regulation in a couple games, they may get their feet back under them and be okay. But if they're going to continue to go into extra time to win these games, I don't think Washington's doomed. I don't think they're going to win. I really don't.
Yeah, I still think Columbus will ultimately win this series, just because overall I think they're playing better than Washington. But because the goal that Washington got in that double overtime game was, a good team is going to have luck, I guess. So to call this goal lucky, I guess, is a goal that where basically shot it on net and it kind of bounced off the defenseman, and then the puck bounced off the forward skate again, and then finally went into the net. So the puck was basically bouncing around before it went into the net. I mean, that's one of those goals where, call it what you want, call it garbage goal or lucky goal or whatever you want to call it. But Washington was very fortunate to get out of there with a win. So I think the series was more likely to be a 3-0 series lead for Columbus than would be the other way around. Just because Columbus overall, I think, has played better. And now they're in a situation where Columbus, all they got to do is win their home games, and they're done. Series will be over in 6.
Right. I think they still stand a tough test, Wayne. I'm not ready to say Columbus is going to win this series, but I think tonight's game is going to be, even if Washington wins and they tie it up, I think tonight is really the pivotal game in this series.
Well, it's a must-win for Washington.
If they lose this game, it's over.
Yep.
If they win this game, especially if they do it in regulation, hey, that's pretty darn good. You're down 2-0. You lose the first 2 games at home.
Yep.
And then you come back and win 2 games in your opponent's building. You come back home, you've got to feel on top of the world. And I think more so than Game 5, this is the pivotal game of the series.
Yep.
If Washington capitalizes on it, no pun intended, and they win, then I think they take the series.
Well, they reclaim home ice with a win tonight. So
right.
So yeah, I would even go out there and say the winner of tonight's game is going to win the series.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Because if Washington comes out on top in this game tonight, Holtby will be coming back home with a lot more confidence than he's been playing with lately.
Right.
That will help that situation out immensely, and Washington regains home ice with a win tonight too, because the final 3 games, 2 of them are in Washington. So it's I think Game 4 is huge for both teams.
Yep.
Which will make tonight's game really entertaining.
Oh, yeah. You're going to want to watch that game tonight, including your Bruins, but you're going to want to keep tabs on that Columbus game.
I'll have them both on. I'll have my Bruins up on the screen above me and the big screen, and then I'll have the other game over here on my screen to the right once the podcast is done. So, yeah, I'll have both games on for sure.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that they're the only two games being played tonight, because a couple of the series out west are already done. So yeah. All right. I guess that's it on this series. Let's move on to the Penguins Flyers. And this one has been all Pittsburgh pretty much at this point.
Yes.
They have, well, basically the 4 games that have been played have all been blowouts, which is crazy. It's not even been a close series at all. Recapping, Game 1, back on Wednesday the 11th, Pittsburgh wins 7-0. Just totally dominated the game. Flyers were never in it from start to finish. Game 2, Flyers come back and turn the tables on Pittsburgh and pretty much pull, not as dominating, but they came out with a strong effort and beat Pittsburgh 5-1 in their own building to tie the series. And that was Friday the 13th. So maybe that's why the Flyers won. It was Friday the 13th, after all. Game 3 goes back to Philadelphia. Pittsburgh dominates again, 5-1 final. Game 4 on Wednesday, the 18th. Pittsburgh, 5-0 final. Again, end-to-end dominating. It's just been Pittsburgh has overwhelmed Philadelphia at this point in this series.
Yep.
And it scares me to watch Pittsburgh play this way because they're, and even in the game last night as the game was drawing to a close, I just noticed that Pittsburgh wasn't celebrating. They were just all business. They were in the zone. They were just purely focused on getting the game finished, rolling 4 lines, just getting everything done.
Yep.
Which scares me because Pittsburgh's basically at this point just it's a matter of time. They know they're going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And this series really hasn't lived up to its billing, Wayne. I thought it was going to be a much closer series. I would not be surprised if it ends tomorrow night. And Philadelphia's got to be crushed after losing both games at the Wells Fargo Center.
Yep.
You'd have thought they had pulled one of those out. They really, when they came back and won that second game in a decisive manner, I really thought, hey, watch, this is going to be the series we were looking for.
Yep.
A bloodbath in Pennsylvania. And then Pittsburgh came back and turned it around. But last night's game, and my wife and I watched that, it was like the air was let out of the bag in Philadelphia. They could not function in that game at all. Nope. And when Pittsburgh scored goal 4 and 5, it was silent. I mean, it was really, you heard some cheering, but that was the Pittsburgh fans, and there just wasn't a lot of support after that.
Well, I even heard Philadelphia fans booing their own team a couple of times in that game.
Yep. So,
which is no surprise coming from Philadelphia. They do that all the time, but yeah, it's just been a very disappointing series for the Flyers perspective for sure. But again, this is like New Jersey. They're a young team. They haven't had a whole lot of playoff success in recent years. And the core of this team hasn't had a whole lot of playoff experience. And it's just, one of those cases where as Philadelphia moves forward, they're going to take this as an experience that they need to learn from. And they'll come back next year. They've got some young players that are getting their first taste of playoff experience this year, and they'll come back here next year with all that behind them, and they'll be a stronger team for it.
Right.
One thing though that jumps out at me with Philadelphia is they really need to solve their goaltending.
Goaltending is a big problem there.
Goaltending has been a problem pretty much since Ron Hextall left. That's how long. Yeah. Goaltending's been a problem. And I know they've got some prospects that they're very, very high on there in Philadelphia. Goaltending prospects I'm talking about. So that, there is light at the end of that tunnel, but it's probably going to be another 3 years before any of those hot young prospects that they've got will be ready. to take over the nets. But until then, they've got to figure something out because goaltending has killed them in this series.
Right.
So, but yeah, this has been pretty much a one-sided series. Not a whole lot to write home about in that. Kind of disappointing because I was hoping this one you'd see these two teams beat each other up physically.
Yeah. Yeah, it hasn't been that way at all.
No, it's been all Pittsburgh in this one. All right, let's move out west. Nashville against Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
Just to recap that series, let's see. Going back to game 1, Thursday the 12th, Nashville wins that one 5-2. Saturday, April 14th was game 2. Nashville comes away with a 5-4 win in that one. That was a regulation win in that. And those two games, of course, were both in Nashville. Game 3 goes to Colorado. And on Monday the 16th, and Colorado comes away with the win in that one, 5-3. So, again, after Game 3, I'm thinking, okay, home team's going to win all the games in this one. This one could go long. But then that's when the tide changed a little bit for Nashville. Game 4 in Colorado on Wednesday the 18th. Nashville comes away with the 3-2 win in that one. And then Game 5, of course, has yet to be played. That will be tomorrow night. And that's back in Nashville. It'll be a 9:30 p.m. start. And then Game 6, if necessary, will be in Colorado on Sunday. And Game 7 will be in Nashville on Tuesday. Yep. Again, if necessary. So, we've completed 4 games in this one. The biggest thing that jumps out at me is, again, Colorado, young team. It's the same story as Philadelphia and New Jersey, young team. A lot of stars, a lot of young kids that haven't had any playoff experience. But overall, even if they don't win another game in this series, I think the whole season as a whole has been a success for Colorado. Keep in mind, they only got 48 points last year, finished dead last in the NHL.
Yep.
They come right back around. But and the other thing that jumps out at me with Colorado is their goaltending. They're at their, and it's not because they've been playing bad. It's just they've been hurt.
Yep.
Bernier,
is out.
Varlamov got hurt before the playoffs even started. Now Bernier's hurt, so now they're down to the hammer.
Yeah, they're using the Hamburglar.
Yep.
And listen, I'm just going to say it like this. Patrick Roy had those players. Varlamov was on the team. Had those players in the playoffs. They were a playoff team. They were a great team with Patrick Roy. Then he leaves, 4 weeks before the season starts last year.
Yep.
And the team was in chaos. So it's not surprising that they didn't make the playoffs. Jared Bednar, that you can't hold him accountable for that at all. But what he did do was in the offseason and through the struggles that they faced, brought the team around. And we're seeing that playoff team that Patrick Roy got in the playoffs a couple years ago. I really think he's brought the talent that he had. He solved the Duchesne problem and got the talent that he had to play like a team again, a solid playoff contending team. That's what I think's happened.
Yep.
This series, to me, has been closer than I thought it would be. It really, I think Colorado's played very well. They really have. And if they can pull off the unthinkable and win a game in Nashville, this series could really be interesting. I don't know whether they can win a game in Nashville, but that's what they got to do. They got to win tonight or tomorrow night. They have to win that game. And if they could do it, that by no means guarantees them. I don't think they're going to win 3 in a row. I think it's a matter of time. But it's going to be interesting when they go back to Colorado. If they can pull off a win, play their hearts out, and pull off a win in Nashville, it's going to be really interesting when they go back to Colorado. See how that goes.
Yep, it would.
I think the winner of this series is going to be Nashville. But Colorado has done better than I thought they would.
Yep, for sure. Yep, I would agree with that. So, yeah, lot's going to depend on how the Hamburglar plays. So,
yeah, and we've seen before he's played brilliant.
Yep.
Lights out. He can do it.
Yep, when he was with Ottawa. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's possible. Who knows?
Yep.
You know, they're playing with house money at this point. They are. You know, Nashville's expected to win. The pressure is all on them to win this series.
That's right, Wayne. That's right.
All right. And I guess that's it for this series. And I just happened to look up, and the Bruins just announced that Patrice Bergeron is not playing tonight.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very concerned. Upper body injury, they're saying. So, no, who knows? I hope it's not a concussion. That's all I hope.
Yeah.
Because there was no talk of that all day long today. There's no news stories whatsoever concerning Bergeron. All of a sudden, he's not playing. So I guess we'll have to tune into that game to see why. All right, let's move on to the Jets and Wild. And to recap that series, we have played 4 games in this series. Winnipeg won both games 1 and 2 at home. Game 1 was Wednesday the 11th. That was a 3-2 win for Winnipeg. Game 2 was Friday the 13th. A 4-1 win for Winnipeg. Game 3 was Sunday. That one went to Minnesota. That was in Minnesota. That was a 6-2 final there. And then Game 4, Winnipeg came out with a strong road effort and took the 2-0 win in that game. And a little bit of controversy in that game. I don't know if you saw the Eric Stahl getting cross-checked in the neck in that game.
Yeah. No, sir. I did not see that game. Game 4, so or Game 3 for that matter. So tell me about it.
Well, we'll talk about it more in a bit because the player involved got suspended, and of course, you know, he's suspended for 1 game. But we'll talk more about the details of it. But basically, what Bruce Boudreau in his comments after the game was basically saying that cross check, which went with uncalled, by the way, it was clear. I mean, it was cross-check that he basically reached up and got him right in the neck, knocked him out, or not out, but, you know, knocked him down, and no call by the officials in that one. And it happened right in front of the net, right in the slot. So how 2 officials missed it, I don't understand, but because usually, depending on where the play is, you've got one guy watching the play, another guy's watching the front of the net, because that's usually where a lot of crap goes down.
Right.
But apparently, neither official felt that was enough to warrant a penalty, although the league stepped in and suspended the player who delivered the cross-check. And Minnesota, Boudreau, after the game, essentially blamed the whole losing the game on that non-call, which I don't understand because, you know, Minnesota played 60 minutes in that game, not just that one moment in time, and they still didn't score a goal. So
right, very good.
So Winnipeg anyway ultimately wins that game 2-0, and of course it was 1-0 right to the end, and Winnipeg got the empty netter to make it 2-0. So that series now is at 3-1. Game 5 is Friday night on at Winnipeg at 7:30. Mm-hmm. And Game 6, if necessary, will be Sunday the 22nd at Minnesota. And Game 7 will be Wednesday the 25th at Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. So, and times for those games are to be announced. So I guess the TV networks decide when we play games nowadays, not the other way around. Yeah. So, but yeah, this has been a tough series for Minnesota. They lost Suter just before the playoffs started. Now they've lost Parise. They've had a lot of injuries. I think that's been the biggest issue with Minnesota at this point in this series. Of course, Winnipeg is the heavy favorite in this series anyway, so no one is really surprised that they're up 3-1. But
right, My thoughts again. I think when this is one of those teams where the Wild, while they have had some playoff success recently in the past few years, the Jets are easily the better team. The Jets could win the Western Conference Championship. There's no doubt about it. They could be the Stanley Cup representative from the West. So my odds on it's either going to be them or the Predators. I don't think the Golden Knights, just a lack of experience there, but I just think the Jets have a great force with Patrick Laine. I just think he is getting ready to break out even more than he has, and show you what he can do in the playoffs. And I just think the Jets are a great team. So I think they're going to win the next game, and I think this series is over.
Yep, I agree.
This is very much I get the feeling in this series very much like I do in the Lightning Devils series. You're watching a team, the Jets, that is better than the Wild. They're just a better team, and on paper, on the ice, doesn't matter how you want to evaluate them, they are a better team. So they're getting ready to head to the second round, and I'm telling you, I don't know how it's set up for them to play, but they're going to probably wind up playing the Predators, and that's going to be one hell of a series.
It's going to be a great series. I can't wait to watch that one.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next series then in our review, and that takes us into the Pacific Division. And these are two series. These next two series are actually finished already. So this one is Vegas versus LA. Just to recap it, Game 1 in Vegas went 1-0 Vegas. Game 2 on Friday the 13th goes to Vegas as well, 2-1 in 2 overtimes. Game 3 in LA also goes to Vegas, 3-2. And that was on Sunday the 15th. And on Game 4, another 1-0 game on Tuesday night also goes to Vegas. Vegas ends up sweeping LA. Although I've watched a lot of these games because usually they're playing on the same night as the Bruins or on the off night, and I've just been staying up. I'm very intrigued in this series, in the Vegas team in general, and this was a tightly contested series. So even though all 4 games went to Vegas, this was about as close of a 4-game sweep as you could get. All 4 games going 1-goal games, with one of them being an overtime game and 2 others being a 1-0 game.
Right.
It just what Vegas is doing is just purely amazing to me.
Yeah.
At the way that they're just marching through, they march through the regular season, no trouble, winning the division, making a playoff spot with basically a team of guys that were rejects from other teams. And then they go into the playoffs and take the 2-time defending cup, or not, they're not the 2-time defending, but a 2-time cup winning team in LA and ultimately beating them. And in a lot of ways took LA out of their game. Drew Doughty ends up getting a suspension in this game. Just because Vegas basically got under his skin the whole series. And Fleury outplays Jonathan Quick, and it's just an amazing story to see how well Vegas is doing. And now the Vegas fans are coming out of the woodwork in droves. Now you're seeing the big parties out on the street before and after games, and it's crazy what's going on there.
Yep. I don't know. I just think that the Kings gave it their all. They couldn't break through with a goal when they really needed it. Say, for example, in Game 1 or in Game 3, where they had opportunities and couldn't capitalize. That's what it really was. The Kings could not capitalize on the opportunities they had. Now, Granted, I didn't watch the game Sunday or Tuesday night. I had no power. But That's the thing. Normally, you see a Los Angeles Kings team that plays smash mouth hockey, and they don't. Yeah, they can win 7-1, but they grind it out on the ice. They're a grind it out type team. They wear you down physically, and they are able to overpower you and win in the end. Sometimes it's 2 goals, sometimes it's a goal, but you definitely know when you're on the ice, you're watching the physicality of the Los Angeles Kings, a veteran team, grinded. That just didn't happen in this series.
Nope.
They just didn't do that.
Nope.
They never got that opportune goal.
Yep. And Vegas did. That's
ultimately right.
That's ultimately the difference. Yep.
Yep.
And Vegas has been doing all year. Basically, their style of play is physical but fast and never stop working. This is a team where their feet are always moving. They're grinding it out themselves, just doing it at a very high pace, playing playoff style hockey right from day one in October, right straight through the end of the season. And they've been playing with a chip on their shoulder all season long, and it's just continuing. Yep. And the team that they're going to play in the next round, the San Jose Sharks, better come in ready to play, or they're going to find themselves swept out of the playoffs as well.
Yep.
Because right now, the way Vegas is playing, I'm having a hard time believing there's any team in the West that can beat them.
Well, do they stand a good chance against San Jose? I really think they do of winning that series. I know we're going to talk about San Jose in a minute, but they got tested by Los Angeles, Wayne. They got tested. They really did. But it's going to be the test that they need to we really need to see is when they lose a game or they're down by a game in the series. Then we'll see how they respond. I'm surprised if they go whirling through it and they win the next series 4 games to 1 or 4 games to 2 and never are down in the series and then go to the Western Conference Finals. I'd be shocked. I really.
Yeah, because Vegas really hasn't faced any true adversity yet this year.
Right.
Because they've been winning right from the day one of the regular season. They basically coasted into the playoffs with the champion. And then now they're winning 4 in a row. They haven't been down in a series yet. They haven't even lost a playoff game yet.
Yep.
They can truly say right now they're the only team in NHL history that's never lost a playoff game.
Yep. And I'm going to talk to that later on. That's my pick of the week. But you're absolutely right.
Yep. So it's crazy to see what's going on there. So, yeah, Vegas moves on, and they await their next opponent, which will be the winner of the next series we got to talk about. And that's the Ducks and the Sharks.
Yep.
And that one, too, is over. That one, too, also ends in a 4-game sweep. But this one was not nearly as close of a series as the Vegas-LA series. Going back to Game 1 on Thursday the 12th, San Jose wins that game 3-0. Game 2 was on Saturday the 14th. San Jose wins that one 3-2 in regulation. Game 3, which is the first game in Anaheim, the first 2 games were in San Jose. San Jose comes in and just blows away Anaheim 8-1 in that game. I didn't see any of this game, and when I saw the score, I had no interest in watching that game because it was so one-sided. So San Jose just dominated that game right from start to finish in that one. And then Game 4 last night, I watched most of the third period and bits and pieces of the rest of the game of that one. And San Jose ends up winning that one 2-1 in regulation. And at least in the games that were close, Game 2 and Game 4, those were cases where Anaheim just couldn't get that tying goal in either case.
Right.
Despite having plenty of chances to do so, especially last night in Game 4. They just couldn't find a way to get that tying goal, and you could tell it was frustrating for them because Anaheim was taking stupid penalties, particularly last night, just out of pure frustration that they couldn't muster a goal. Martin Jones has played very well for San Jose, and San Jose, Evander Kane has been phenomenal for them.
Yep.
Probably the best pickup of the trade deadline for sure in terms of actual results. And, San Jose's just played very, very well.
I think they're going to give Vegas a series.
I hope they do.
Yeah. I think they're going to test Vegas because I just think they're a faster team than the Kings. And I think their defense is surprisingly solid as well. So Martin Jones playing well. It's going to be very interesting. I think they're going to give Vegas. Do I think who's going to win that series? I think Vegas will win, but I think San Jose will play better, much better against them than the Los Angeles Kings did. And the Kings really came close to winning a game or two.
Yep.
So it should be interesting.
Yep, it's going to be a fun series to watch for sure. And even though both teams are finished their series, both teams know they're playing each other. This series won't get underway until all the other first round series are done. Hockey doesn't do like I think basketball. If two teams were in this situation where they get done their series before anyone else, they would go ahead and start this second round series.
Right.
But hockey doesn't do that. So the advantage that San Jose and Vegas has is they're both done. They can rest any players that are going through some bumps and bruises, and they're basically just sitting there waiting to play. It could be another week before they play each other.
Right.
So they can, study each other and all that. So it should be fun, this series. Should see two relatively healthy teams coming in to play each other. And who knows? Maybe Joe Thornton comes back in this series. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be.
Because he did skate one of the warm-ups. The first game, I think, first or second game on home ice. He actually went out for warm-ups and skated. Didn't end up playing, ended up being scratched, but I don't know what that was all about, but it seemed to be like maybe they were sending a message to Anaheim of some kind. So who knows? So, this series is done. So now San Jose awaits Vegas in the next round.
And, Wayne, I have a funny feeling that we're going to be waiting until the first of next week before that series gets started. So they're going to have several days, both teams, to rest.
Yep, for sure. Now, what is your impression? I've seen a lot of people complaining about the officiating league-wide. What has been your impression so far? I've kind of been indifferent about it. Both officials have missed both calls. Like in the Boston-Toronto series, Toronto's first goal in Game 3 was the result of a blown call. The Bruins dumped the puck off the glass, but the puck went over the glass, and they gave Bruins a delayed penalty when the replay clearly showed that it actually went off the glass before it went out. And Toronto scored on the power play on that one. But at the same time, Boston in, I think it was Game 1, got a goal where they were offside. It was clear on the replay, but Toronto didn't challenge it. But the bottom line was Boston was offside, and they got away with it. They got a goal on that play. So in terms of the officiating, I don't think any one team has gotten a distinct advantage as a result of the officiating. I just think there's been missed calls, across the board for everybody. And it's just something they got to deal with.
Yeah. The team that I don't want to see getting the breaks that they ultimately do in these types of situations is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yep.
Pittsburgh is a perennial break getter. They get if any team gets the breaks, I'd never want to hear a Pittsburgh Penguin fan say, "Oh, we were up against the world in that one. We were the underdog." No. They get breaks every single time. So that's just my feelings on it.
That is true.
I don't have enough to really say anything there, Wayne, to that comment. I think it's playoff hockey,
Yep.
And you are going to have calls go against you. You are going to have bad luck, and you are going to have stuff happen, freak goals and stuff like that. It's the team that doesn't let that phase them, and gets by it and wins. That's really what it's all about. You got to win.
Yep.
You got to get through those situations. Yep. And so I don't think officiating has cost anybody that I've seen so far. So, I'm sure you're going to find missed calls and problems and stuff like that. But overall, the teams that I find the officials rise to the occasion in the playoffs.
Yep.
So,
well, and here's the bottom line: until you've tried it, as far as being an official, you don't have a clue what they're going through. There is so much going on the ice. And that's the reason why the NHL uses 4 officials now. I mean, can you imagine there was a day when they would only use 2 officials or 3?
Yep.
Now you've got 2 guys on the ice wearing the orange armbands that are looking for penalties. You've got 2 guys on the ice that are not wearing the orange armbands who are calling offsides, icing. They're basically doing lines. So you've got 4 sets of eyes. Granted, the guys without the bands are not going to be calling penalties because that's not their job. But so that leaves you with just 2 sets of eyes looking for penalties. But those 2 sets of eyes have to watch 12 players, the puck.
Yep.
They've got to watch, in the middle of the play, behind the play. I mean, and stuff is happening so fast out there. I'm not defending them in any way, but I'm just saying. They're not perfect. They're going to miss stuff, and the good teams are going to rise above it. They're going to, they're going to win one way or another,
right?
Either despite the refs or not. And like you said, you're going to get calls go your way. You're going to get calls go against you.
Yep.
It should all, for the most part, even out in the end. Like in the Toronto-Boston series, both teams now have gotten a goal as a result of a missed call by an official. Boston got a goal off an offsides play. Toronto got a goal thanks to a blown delay game penalty. And bottom line is, the team that got scored on didn't stop them from scoring. So, it is what it is. So yeah, I've seen a lot of complaints online, particularly with fans about on both sides, on on all teams' fronts, complaints about the officiating. And as far as I'm concerned, it is what it is. Yeah, they're not going to be perfect, but they are still regarded as the best officials in the world, and they're doing the best job they can. So we'll leave it at that. All right. I guess that's it for reviewing the series. So let's get into some of the stories that have happened over the past week. And we'll start, of course, with transactions, starting with Glenn Gulutzan. He was fired as coach of the Calgary Flames on Tuesday. The Flames were 37, 35, and 10, fifth in the Pacific Division, and missed the playoffs by 11 points after making it in Gulutzan's first season. Calgary's home record of 17, 20, and 4 was the 4th worst in the NHL. And their power play at 16% was tied for 28th. The Flames also scored an NHL low 61 third-period goals. 46-year-old was 82, 68, and 14 in 2 seasons with Calgary, and in 4 NHL seasons is 146, 125, and 23. Assistant coaches Dave Cameron and Paul Gerard were also fired. Ultimately, you are what your record says you are, but I felt in order to get our team to the level it needs to get to, and each individual to the level he needs to get to, that we needed to make this decision. Calgary General Manager Brad Treliving said, we underperformed. When you go through the process of underperforming, you pull everything. It starts with myself, player decisions, personnel decisions. You go into the player's performance, who played well, who didn't, and why. I'm surprised they fired him after just 2 years.
Yeah, I think they really felt they should have made the playoffs, Wayne. And I guess they took a step back and they didn't think they should. So, but I'm surprised too. I agree with you. I think they should have given him one more year.
Yep. And obviously neither one of us are Calgary fans, and neither one of us are even close to that team. Calgary seems so far away from where we live. we clearly don't know what's going on there. So maybe there's something that going on behind the scenes there that that warranted this change. Maybe some Calgary fans could enlighten us in that one.
Right.
All right, next one. Peter Chiarelli will remain president general manager of the Edmonton Oilers next season. We'll be evaluating Coach Todd McLellan and his staff, CEO, and Vice Chair Bob Nicholson said Thursday. We will have a plan coming out in the near future about how we're going forward, Nicholson said. We have one goal, and that's to make sure we're back in the playoffs next year. The Oilers finished 6th in the Pacific Division, 17 points behind the Avalanche for the second wild card into the playoffs from the Western Conference. In 2017, Edmonton advanced to the Western Conference second round, where it lost to Anaheim Ducks in 7 games. It's the only appearance by the Oilers in the playoffs since 2006, when they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. Chiarelli, who was hired by the Oilers on April 24th, 2015, and won the Stanley Cup as GM of the Bruins in 2011, said Wednesday there's no guarantee that McLellan and his staff would be back next season. The Oilers are 114, 109, and 23 in McLellan's 3 seasons as coach. So, what's your reaction to this one?
Here's a situation where they are giving Peter Chiarelli a chance, okay, to contrast it with Glenn Gullison. And I think they should, because they were a dominant team last year. And again, I'm not behind the scenes to see everything that's going on, but I think that Cam Talbot didn't have as good a year in goal. That hurt them. Of course, he had some injury problems too. But all in all, next year is a pivotal season for Peter Chiarelli and everybody involved. Todd McLellan, the whole group.
Yep. I don't think Todd McLellan's safe. They're not saying right now, hey, we're going to bring him back.
Yeah,
I think they may make him. I think ultimately, if a better coach comes along, they're going to go ahead and make the move now with McLellan.
Wow. Well, that'll be interesting to see.
They seem to be taking a wait and see approach. Probably waiting to see which coaches end up out on free agency, however you want to call it. Which coaches are available. But they may make it. I could see Barry Trotz getting hired one day, or getting fired one day in Washington, getting hired in Edmonton the next.
Yeah,
I could see something like that happening.
Right. It's good. That'll be interesting. That'd be very interesting. I don't know. I see McLellan getting another year too. I really do. But you might be right, Wayne.
But there's a lot of fans in Edmonton today when they saw this story come out are not happy. I know there's a lot of Edmonton fans that want Chiarelli gone for getting rid of all the young stars that they've gotten rid of over the past several years. They clearly, at least in the near term, have clearly lost the Taylor Hall trade.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Because Taylor Hall has done nothing but basically dominate the NHL since he left Edmonton. So, yeah. So, I guess it's a wait and see right now for what's going to happen in Edmonton. All right. And a similar story, Guy Boucher may not return as the coach of the Senators next season, but there's no timetable for a decision, GM Pierre Dorion said on Thursday. Dorian said evaluation of Boucher and his staff is underway after the Senators went 28-43-11 and finished next to last in the NHL one season after reaching Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Final against the Penguins before losing in double overtime. Dorian said changes will be made even if Boucher returns. 2 things that will change. If he's back, it's the implementation of younger players in our lineup, but he will decide who gets what ice time. And we're going to practice more. I like these quotes. We're going to practice more. He said, rest is a weapon. If I have to hear that one more time, I'll go crazy. Boucher is 72, 71, and 21 in 2 seasons with Ottawa, and 169, 150, and 41 in 5 seasons in the NHL. He coached the Lightning from 2010-11 through 2012-13. Dorian said there's a 99.9% chance the Senators will use their first-round pick in the draft instead of surrendering it, because they have that option with that trade in the Avalanche, the Matt Duchene trade.
They can keep that pick or they can give it to the Avalanche. If they keep the pick, the Avalanche get their pick next year. So, but yeah, one of the things with Boucher has said is he's got this thing saying that, allowing the players to play or practice less keeps them fresher, which makes them play better. That theory worked last year, but this year it seemed to fall in their face. And it's clear that Dorian does not agree with that policy.
I find that very funny, Wayne. I find that extremely funny that they haven't fired that man yet, and he's sitting there saying that.
Yep, that is true.
I think you got to tie Erik.
Karlsson.
Erik Karlsson directly to this. You have to tie that whole situation directly to this. If he and Guy Boucher are not on the same page, or there is a difference of opinion, body language, whatever, Boucher's gone. And it all revolves around Erik Karlsson there in Ottawa.
Yep.
So, that's the real key thing here is how does Erik Karlsson, I really don't know. I really don't know what he thinks of Guy Boucher. But that really is what's most important.
Yeah,
do you remember when, for example, here's a Lycan story. In the Buffalo Sabres organization, and I'm trying to remember his name, Dan Bylsma was the coach.
Yep.
But I remember the interview where they were talking to Jack Eichel, and they said, "What do you think of Dan Bylsma as a coach?" Do you remember that? And he wouldn't even look at the reporter. He looked down like this, and he's like, "Well, I think Dan Bylsma, is a good coach, and he's doing." I mean, his body language told it all.
Oh yeah.
He didn't Dan Bylsma. He didn't like him at all. He didn't believe. He didn't even. It was a poor lie. I mean, it really was. You could see it all over him.
Yep.
There was no liking him whatsoever. In Ottawa, I don't know what the situation is because they haven't got somebody there to get it on camera asking Erik Karlsson what they think of Guy Boucher as a coach. But I can tell you that that's very, very important. Do the players like you? Do they want to play for you? Yep. Are they going to buy into what you're saying?
Absolutely.
That's what this is all about.
Absolutely, and that's probably what cost Gulletson his job in Calgary.
Right.
Is the players had stopped listening to him and they weren't buying in anymore.
Yep.
That's probably what it was, which is why he's no longer there. So, and it's clear that Ottawa's priority right now is to get Erik Karlsson re-signed. As of July 1st, he can sign an extension onto his current contract, which ends at the end of next season. They want to get him signed before he ends up on free agency because if he ends up on the open market, he's gone.
Oh, I agree.
And he'll be gone for nothing because he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So yeah, Ottawa definitely needs to get Karlsson signed. That'll be their top priority. And then after that, then they'll probably figure out what to do with the coaching staff. So,
yep.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting summer for sure if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, and not in a good way. We'll put it that way.
That's right. Yep.
All right. Well, that's it for transactions that have happened so far this week. So let's move on to some injuries, and we've had a few come up. First and foremost, Sean Couturier didn't play when the Philadelphia Flyers played the Penguins in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference first round at Wells Fargo Center last night. The Flyers' number one center left practice early on Tuesday because of an apparent injury. He collided with defenseman Radko Gudas and left the ice. And that I saw that. Somebody got it on camera. Apparently a reporter had a phone out and saw just that. Gudas basically, they were doing like a 2-on-1 kind of drill, and Gudas went over and banged knees with Couturier. It was a knee-on-knee hit. And Couturier went flying, and he was so pissed when he hit the ice. He threw his stick against the boards and ended up leaving the ice. Apparently he's day-to-day. He didn't play last night, but now the most recent news coming out of Philadelphia is that he's at the very least, a game-time decision for game 5 for them. So looks like they're probably going to try to get him back because he's been one of Philadelphia's best players, and it showed last night that he wasn't in the lineup. They really missed him.
Right.
And if Flyers have any chance of coming back in this series, they're going to need Couturier healthy and back out there.
Agreed.
He's been one of the few players that have been productive for them.
You hit the nail on the head on that one, Wayne. I can't say anything on that one. You hit it. You were all over that one.
All right, then let's move on to Patrick Hornqvist, who didn't play for the Penguins in Game 4 against the Flyers on Wednesday. The 31-year-old forward is considered day-to-day with an upper body injury that kept him out of practice on Tuesday. Defenseman Chris Letang, who missed practice because of a maintenance day, is expected to play. Sullivan would not say when the injury occurred to Hornqvist. It's unclear how the Penguins will compensate for his absence in the top power play unit. Well, they seem to compensate just fine because they ended up winning the game. It's already been announced that he will also not play in Game 5 of that series on Friday night. So, sounds like Hornqvist's injury is going to be not necessarily a long-term injury, but he'll be out for a little while anyway.
Right. And he's a very much needed player for Pittsburgh, but since they're rolling away in this series, it doesn't really show.
Yeah.
So they're okay. They're okay until they get to the next round.
Yep.
Chances are they might be playing. I don't know. Washington can come back. That series is a lot closer than, just because Columbus is up 2-1 doesn't mean Washington can turn around and win that series. They can. Washington can come back and win that series easy. But I think that missing Hornqvist doesn't hurt them right now. Pittsburgh, take care of business, win that last game, and rest, and Hornqvist will be back.
Yeah, Hornqvist is. If you're not a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, you don't like him one bit. He's like their Marchand.
Right.
Or their Kadri.
He's Radko Gudas, really, almost.
He mucks it up. He can occasionally skate the line between dirty and clean, but he goes into the dirty areas. He's a physical player. He parks himself in front of the net. So he's not the most talented guy on the Penguins, but man, he's effective at what he does.
Absolutely. And, very effective player.
And you hate him if you're not a Penguins fan, but if you're a Penguins fan, you love a guy like that because he makes life easier for the guys like Crosby and Malkin to do what they do.
Right.
All right, moving on. Andrei Burakovsky will miss at least the games 3 and 4 against for the Washington Capitals in the Eastern Conference first round against the Blue Jackets. Burakovsky sustained an upper body injury at 14:47 of the first of Game 2 on Sunday when Blue Jackets forward Boone Jenner checked him into the boards. Burakovsky played left wing on a line with Nick Backstrom and TJ Oshie. He had 25 points in 55 games during the regular season. Against the Blue Jackets, he has no points and 3 shots on goal. Burakovsky skated 2 minutes and 12 seconds in Game 2 before departing. Not a real huge injury for Washington, but, third, fourth line guy, certainly, it hurts them, but not as if they would lose Backstrom or Oshie or Ovechkin. Losing one of those guys would be devastating for them.
Right.
So
agreed.
Not much else to say about that one. All right, and the last one injury I've got concerns NHL linesman Steve Barton. I don't know if you saw this.
No, actually, this is the first time I've seen this one.
Oh, okay. Well, he dislocated his left kneecap and tore his quadricep during Game 2 of the Eastern Conference first round between the Columbus Blue Jackets and Washington Capitals at Capital One Arena back on Sunday. He was injured when his skate clipped the skate of Blue Jackets forward Josh Anderson. And this happened just as he dropped the puck. He goes to skate back, and he hit skates with Josh Anderson, but it sent him off balance enough where compensating for losing the balance, he ended up doing damage to his leg. And he went down, couldn't get up, and he had to be helped off the ice. So they ended up playing the rest of that period. There was 48 seconds left in the period when he went down. They ended up playing the rest of that period with just 3 officials, 2 referees and 1 linesman. And then because the playoffs, they use a backup official. That backup official ended up, getting the gear on and coming out, and they skated the rest of the game with 4 officials.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
All right, so let's move on to suspensions and fines, and it was kind of a busy week for the Department of Player Safety. Josh Morrissey was suspended 1 game by the NHL Department of Player Safety. The Winnipeg Jets defenseman was disciplined for cross-checking Minnesota Wild center Eric Stahl in the first period of Game 4 in the Western Conference first round on Wednesday. Morrissey will not be eligible for Game 5 at Winnipeg on Friday. The Jets lead the best-of-7 series 3-1. The incident occurred at 16:38 of the first. There was no penalty assessed on the play. Stahl did return to the game, however. And we talked about this play when we were talking about that series and how Coach Boudreau was very upset that wasn't called. But ultimately, the Department of Player Safety decided it needed to be called, and they suspended Morrissey for a game. It looked like to me that he wanted to get Stahl in the shoulder with the cross-check. But instead, he completely missed the shoulder and got him in the neck instead. And that, of course, was Morrissey's argument when he met with the Department of Player Safety. But they weren't buying it. They suspended him a game anyway. All right, Toronto Maple Leafs forward Nazem Kadri was suspended for 3 games for boarding Boston Bruins forward Tommy Wingels during Game 1 of the team's first-round series in Boston on Thursday, April 12th. The incident occurred at 8:14 in the third period. Kadri was assessed a major penalty for charging and a game misconduct. This one has had the Boston Bruins fans in an absolute uproar since it happened.
Right. They think he should have got more?
I was actually surprised he got that much.
Yeah, that's what my first question was going to be to you.
Yeah. Just because, the NHL player safety in past years has clearly held playoff games at a higher importance than regular season.
Right.
Therefore, suspensions tend to be less during the playoffs. It was a vicious hit. I mean, no doubt about it.
Right.
What Kadri did there was completely uncalled for and was extremely dangerous. That could have done a lot of damage to Wingels. And Wingels, at this point, I don't think he's played since getting hit. I think he's going through the concussion protocol. But, yeah, it was a vicious hit. I felt it deserved at least 1, probably 2 games. I was kind of surprised when he got 3. So, definitely deserved. Kadri does have a history. He's kind of Toronto's Brad Marchand. I keep bringing up Marchand as a comparison because, everybody knows what kind of player Marchand is. And he's Toronto's version of that.
Yeah.
So that's just, it is what it is. Kadri will be back for Game 5.
Oh, and he'll be ready to go too, Wayne. You know why? Because rest is a weapon, Wayne.
Yep.
Rest is a weapon. So he will be ready to go.
Yeah, rest is a weapon. That's for sure. Yep, and so is Brad Marchand. So it'll be fun to see what happens.
Yeah.
What happens in that game? So, all right. So that's pretty much all. I mean, this happened almost a week ago at this point. So there's not much left to talk about that Kadri incident that hasn't already been discussed out in the open media. So, it is what it is. So hopefully Wingels will come back fairly soon. Not that Wingels is a high-end player for Boston, but he provides that sandpaper that the Bruins feel they need against teams like this. So, all right, let's moving on to the Drew Doughty incident. This one happened way back at Game 1 of that series. He ended up sitting out 1 game for an illegal check to the head of Vegas Golden Knights forward William Carrier during Game 1 of the team's first-round series in Vegas on Wednesday, April 11th. The incident occurred at 9:58 of the third. I felt this one, I didn't think he should have been suspended for it. Just because it looked to me, he got head on the player, but it appeared to me that he was trying to get shoulder first,
right.
and he just missed the shoulder and ended up getting the guy in the head. I get it that they're trying to get those headshots out of the game, and they're suspending any time a player gets hit in the head. They're suspending it, but it looked to me that Doughty was attempting to get him in the side and get him in the shoulder, and he just missed.
Yep.
So I didn't think there was any intent there to deliberately hit him in the head. It's just a tough circumstance where he just missed the shoulder and got the guy's head instead.
Yeah.
And speaking of headshots, Ryan Hartman was suspended a game by the NHL Department of Player Safety. Nashville Predators forward was disciplined for an illegal check to the head of Colorado Avalanche forward Carl Soderberg in Game 4 of the Western Conference first round on Wednesday. Hartman, who's 23, was not eligible for Game 5 on Friday. Predators lead the series 3-1. The incident occurred at 4:42 in the third period. He was penalized for charging at 4:52, and Soderberg left the game. Hartman has 1 goal in the series, averaging 11-11 of ice time. He had 31 points in 78 games with the Blackhawks and Predators during the regular season. So Nashville picks him up at the trade deadline to add a lot of grit to the team, and ultimately it costs them because he ends up getting himself suspended for a game. But I saw the hit. This one definitely deserved a suspension.
Yes.
In my mind.
Yep.
All right. Did I miss any? I think that was it.
No, the ones I saw, and again, in a handicapped state, the ones that I saw, you got quickly going over the NHL.com. The last 22 nights for me, has been a whirlwind trying to get caught up on hockey.
Yeah, well, yeah, when you don't have power for a couple days, it kind of puts you behind.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to some of the other interesting stories that have happened around the league. Did you happen to see? You know how there's that casino in Las Vegas, the New York casino?
Yes.
Where they basically, what are they, half scale skyline of New York City or something like that? You know, they got the Empire State Building and they got a couple of the iconic buildings, kind of a smaller scale version of them.
Yep.
As part of this hotel. Well, there's also a Statue of Liberty there.
Yes.
And Vegas outfitted, I don't know who, I would imagine the casino paid for it, but anyway, they outfitted this Statue of Liberty with a Vegas Golden Knights jersey. A 600-pound jersey.
Unbelievable.
They ended up putting on the Statue of Liberty for the playoffs. So I thought that was kind of an interesting story that they were able to pull that off. I mean, it's getting crazy in Vegas, the way people are getting into it there. Usually you don't see this kind of enthusiasm for the home team until a team at least gets into the third round. This is nuts. They're doing it in round 1.
Yep. and I'm glad to see it, you know.
Oh yeah, it's definitely amazing to see how that city has embraced hockey for sure. And speaking of Golden Knights, there's another story I saw. And I've got a link to it in the show notes because it's a video that you really need to check out. It's the Golden Knights. You know, every team has an opening montage or whatever you want to get the crowd pumped up before the players come out onto the ice, right? Well, this one includes a live skating night against an enemy who was wearing or carrying a LA Kings flag. So first this guy comes out on the ice carrying an LA Kings flag and he's waving it, and then the Knight comes out and basically defeats him and kills him and, you know, ends it, and then there's a whole light show and the laser and the projections on the ice. Pretty amazing to see. To see the whole theatrical performance that's going on before the players even come out onto the ice. You'll have to check out the video. There's a link in the show notes to that. That was an interesting watch for sure. The only other comment I have on that is, as for the two guys that come out on the ice, couldn't they get guys that could skate better? These guys were clearly not very good skaters at all. You can't find people that can skate in Vegas? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's shows out there with people skating. I know they have roller skating shows out there. I'm sure they got ice skating shows.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next story is kind of a Rangers one. It's kind of a bit of a downer, actually. John Amarante, the anthem singer who performed before New York Rangers games at Madison Square Garden for 35 years, died on Tuesday. He was 83. Born in the Bronx, Amarante began performing for the Rangers in 1980 until retiring in 2015, although he made occasional guest appearances. He also sang the anthem for the Knicks and the Yankees. In a 2009 interview with New York Magazine, he said his favorite performance came before Game 7 of the 94 Stanley Cup Final, when the Garden was so loud he couldn't hear himself sing. The Rangers defeated the Canucks 3-2 in that game and won the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1940. So, obviously, thoughts go out to his family and to the whole Rangers organization. And this one hit a little bit home for me because the Bruins ultimately are going to be faced with the same fate with their famous anthem singer, Rene Rancourt, who is currently finishing his last season as the Bruins anthem singer. At the conclusion of the playoffs, Rene Rancourt will be done in Boston as anthem singer. So, it seems like a lot of the longer standing teams have this guy in their organization.
Yep.
The guy who's been the anthem singer night in and night out. Everybody learns to love the voice, and Amarante was huge in New York. Rancourt is huge in Boston. Fans love these guys, and sad to see another one of these guys going.
Yep. I agree. I'm going to miss John Amarante just like I'm going to miss Alain Vigneault. He was part of he was you could not watch a Rangers game if you go back a few years without singing the national anthem. So he's known as the Rangers singer, just as Rene Rancourt is, and but he sang very sparingly in the last few years, Wayne. Yep. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and a lot of people are going to miss him. I think all the players loved him.
Yep.
The Rangers players loved him.
For sure. All right. Defenseman Rasmus Dahlin of Frölunda in Sweden is number 1 on the NHL Central Scouting final ranking of international skaters for the 2018 NHL Draft, to be held American Airlines Center in Dallas on June 22nd, 23rd. I don't think this was a surprise to many. They're all saying Dahlin will be the number 1 overall pick. Central Scouting revealed its final list on the top international skaters and goaltenders and top North American skaters and goaltenders on Monday. Dahlin, who turned 18 on Friday, had 20 points, a +4 rating, 30 hits, 36 block shots, and 84 shots on goal while averaging 19 minutes and 2 seconds of ice time in 41 games in the Swedish Hockey League. Not bad for a kid that was 17 years old playing in a league with grown men.
Yeah.
Rounding out the top 5 for European skaters, and number 2 defenseman Adam Bogqvist of Brynäs in Sweden's junior league. Number 3 right wing Vitaly Kravtsov. We had to start with the Europeans, didn't we? Who's playing in Russia. Number 4 right wing Martin Kaut of Pardubice in the Czech Republic League. Number 5 defenseman Adam Ginning who's playing in the Swedish League. Lucas Dostal of Trebek in the Czech Republic Second Division is the number 1 on the Central Scouting's final list of international goaltenders. On the American side, or the North American side, Andrei Svechnikov of Barrie in the Ontario Hockey League is number 1 on the final ranking of North American skaters, and I think he's projected to go number 2 overall. Svechnikov was number 1 in Central Scouting's midterm list in January, had 72 points and 174 shots on goal and a +26 rating in 44 regular season games as a rookie for Barrie this season. Left wing Brady Tkachuk of Boston University in Hockey East moved to number 2 from number 3. Right wing Philip Zadina of Halifax in the Quebec League moved to number 3 from number 2. And defenseman Evan Bouchard of London moved to number 4 from number 5. Defenseman Noah Dobson of Katy Bathurst moved from number 5 from number 8. And defenseman Quentin Hughes of the University of Michigan moved to number 6 from number 4. And I added the local guy, Tyler Weiss, our local kid that I know the family personally. He ended up number 90 of the North American skaters, which is projected to be round 3. Of course, round 3 would be is if they only drafted North American. Obviously, there'll be a mix of North American and Europeans in there. So I think he's being projected to be somewhere in the 5th to 6th round, late 4 to early 6, somewhere in that ballpark is where Tyler Weiss is expected to be drafted. So I will be watching for sure on draft day to see where he ends up. Oliver Rodrigue is the number 1 goalie for the North American side of things. He was number 2 at the midterm, and he has moved up to number 1. So those are your top prospects that are expected to come out in the draft this summer. And finally, Las Vegas was announced this week that they're going to be hosting the awards show for the next 3 years. Of course, they've hosted the last 10. And Bettman also alluded to the fact that they will be candidates to host more NHL events in the future. He mentioned draft and he mentioned all-star games. And as far as the way they're playing now, wouldn't be surprised if they ended up in a cup final. And he also mentioned a possible outdoor game in Vegas. So I would expect within the next 5 years that all those things are going to happen in Vegas. A draft, an all-star game, and an outdoor game are all going to happen for sure.
Yep.
Because they're really going to want to capitalize on that market. And speaking of expansion teams, Todd Lewicki was named CEO and president of the potential Seattle expansion NHL franchise on Wednesday. He's the younger brother of Tim Lewicki, head of Oakview Group, which is renovating Key Arena, where Seattle team would play. So they're continuing to develop teams. And I love how these articles say, the possible expansion team or the maybe expansion team or the, it's going to happen, people. Come on.
Yeah. Seattle's in.
Seattle's going to be the 32nd team in the NHL.
Yep.
I just don't know why they're beating around the bush. I guess they got to do it that way for sure.
Maybe so they don't piss off people in Quebec City.
Yeah. All right. Who cares about Quebec at this point?
I had to throw that one out there.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I get it. Quebec's bitter about not being able to get a team, but Bettman's made it clear that without actually coming out and say it, that quite frankly he doesn't want to be in Quebec for whatever reason. He doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So until a team decides to move there and gets approved by all the rest of the owners, it's just not going to happen for them.
That's right.
All right, honors and milestones. We've had a few few finalists of some of the NHL awards announced already. The Selke Trophy finalists were announced this week, and that is going to be Patrice Bergeron, Anze Kopitar, and Sean Couturier are your 3 finalists for the Selke Award. And this would be, I think, Bergeron's 5th if he wins it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been nominated like 7 or 8 times. It's ridiculous. They ought to just rename the trophy the Patrice Bergeron Trophy.
They
All right.
Do that.
And as far as the Vezina Trophy is concerned, they announced their finalists: Pekka Rinne, Connor Hellebuyck, and Andrei Vasilevsky are your 3 finalists for the Vezina Trophy, which is obviously the best goaltender in the league. Rinne has been nominated before. Hellebuyck and Vasilevsky, I believe, are their first times being nominated. And a record was broken this week. Pittsburgh Penguins tied, or they didn't break it, they tied a record for fastest 2 goals by one team when they scored twice in just 5 seconds against the Flyers in the second period of Game 3 of the Eastern Conference first round. So Malkin scored first, and then Dumoulin scored 5 seconds later, assisted by Sidney Crosby. And then, speaking of record, David Pastrnak basically broke all kinds of records with a 6-point night. He became the youngest player in NHL history to have at least 6 points in a playoff game when he scored 3 goals and 3 assists. That eclipsed the mark set by Wayne Gretzky, who was 22 years, 81 days old when he had 7 points for the Oilers in Game 3 of the 83 Smythe Division Final. Gretzky scored 4 goals and had 3 assists in a 10-2 win against the Flames. Pastrnak, who had 3 points in Boston's 5-1 victory in Game 1, also matched a mark held by Hockey Hall of Famer Phil Esposito. Pastrnak has 9 points through the first 2 games against Toronto. Of course, he didn't get anything in Game 3, tying Esposito for most points by a player in the first 2 games of playoff series. Esposito had 9 as well for the Bruins against the Leafs in the first 2 games of their 1969 quarterfinal series. The fourth-year forward is also the first Bruins player to get 6 points in a playoff game since Rick Middleton had 2 goals and 4 assists against the Sabres in Game 4 of the 83 Adams Division Final. That was the year I became a Middleton fan myself. Pastrnak is the first to do it in a playoff game since the Flyers forward Claude Giroux scored 3 goals and 3 assists against the Penguins in Game 2 of the 2012 Eastern Conference quarterfinal. And finally, in addition to that, Pastrnak became the first to score 3 goals for the Bruins in a postseason game since David Krejci against Toronto in Game 4 of the 2013 conference quarterfinal. So lots of records being broken there on Pasternak's part.
Yep. Kudos to him.
All right, and
I'm really happy about this next story, Wayne. I just will preview. Go ahead. I'm very happy about this next. You are too. I know you are.
I'm sure you. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Clinton Arena in Clinton, New York, was announced the winner of Kraft Hockeyville USA 2018. I was pulling for the team or the arena in Vermont, in Middlebury, but Clinton Arena is not that far away from Middlebury.
Right.
Only a couple hours drive from there, and it's right near Utica. So yes. Clinton Arena gets the preseason game next year. So my guess for this this preseason game, it's going to be Rangers Sabres as a game between 2 teams that play on either end of the New York State Thruway, which passes right through Utica. Or you could possibly even see the Canucks be involved because the Utica Comets are the minor league team for the Canucks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Canucks. I wouldn't even be surprised to see the Bruins Sabres in that one because
it could be Boston. I was about to say that.
Yep, because Boston is at one end of Interstate 90, whereas Buffalo is at the other, and of course Interstate 90 goes right through Utica. So there's a lot of possibilities there. I would expect there's going to be 2 of those 4 teams. Hopefully it's not the damn Pittsburgh Penguins again.
No, that's what I was going to say. The one thing you won't see in that game is the Pittsburgh Penguins playing.
I hope not.
The Kraft Hockey preseason game. That will not happen.
They've played in the last 2 or 3 Kraft Hockeyville games. So yeah. And from what I understand, the Clinton rink is a very old rink, so it'll need a lot of upgrades, and they get $150,000 in rink upgrades for that arena. So congrats to the city or the town of Clinton, New York. They're basically a suburb of Utica. All right, next story. Ken Hitchcock retired this week. He retired as Dallas Stars coach on Friday. He said, I've contemplated this since our last game, and I came to the conclusion that now is the right time to step away and let the younger generation of coaches take over. The 66-year-old said in a letter on the Stars website. He'll remain with the Stars as a consultant. No replacement has been named. And General Manager Jim Nils said, I'm in no rush. I want to make sure we get the right guy. I want to make sure we're not leaving somebody out of the equation that deserves a chance to be heard. Stars were 42, 32, and 8 in Hitchcock's second stint with Dallas and failed to qualify for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Dallas finished 3 points behind the Avalanche for the second wildcard spot. He's the third winningest coach in NHL history with 823 wins, behind only Scotty Bowman and Joel Quenneville. So I'm reading between the lines here, and I think they asked him to step aside.
Yeah.
And they gave him the opportunity to retire. Put that in air quotes, retire.
Yep. I agree. Agreed, 100%.
Guy with his...
Interesting to see who takes that place of Ken Hitchcock.
It sure will. All right, that's all the stories I have for this week. That puts us into the power rankings for this week. And whose turn is it? My turn, isn't it?
It is your turn, Wayne.
It is my turn. Okay. So what we're going to do, or I'm going to do this week, is since the Los Angeles Kings are eliminated and the Anaheim Ducks are eliminated, I automatically put them in the 15th and 16th spot in this week's ranking just because they're no longer playing. So why would they be higher than that? I actually have LA in 15 and Anaheim in 16 in that order because, I felt LA put up a better fight than Anaheim did, even though both teams got swept. So that's your 15, 16. In number 14, I have Philly. In number 13, I have Colorado. Number 12, I got New Jersey. Number 11, I've got Minnesota. Number 10, I have Washington. Number 9, I have Toronto. And that 9 through 14 are basically, if you look at it, are all your teams that have only one win so far in the playoffs.
Okay.
So that leads us to number 8, who is Columbus. Number 7 is Boston. Number 6 is Tampa Bay. Number 5 is Nashville. Number 4 is Winnipeg. Number 3 is Pittsburgh. And 3 through 6 are your 3-win teams. And then, of course, Boston and Columbus are your 2-win teams. And then number 1 and number 2 I've got as Vegas and San Jose.
Very interesting.
Because the top two obviously are the 2 teams that have already advanced. So why not have them 1 and 2?
Yeah. Very interesting.
So that's the way I have them this week. It's kind of hard to do a power rankings when every team is playing the same team all week long.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard to judge how, like, say, the Bruins would be doing against Nashville, for example.
I think it comes more into view when you get the first series of the playoffs out of the way. Then you have 8 teams left. All of them won their first round playoff series.
Yep.
They're all winners.
Yep.
And so then you can really kind of hone in on which of those teams is playing the best.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So that puts us down to our minor league minute.
Yep.
And I have 2 stories this week. And first and foremost, I want to talk about the American Hockey League as they are headed into their playoffs. And they finally have things figured out, I think. I'm pulling up there. Where did it go? There it is. So all 16 teams have been decided in the Calder Cup playoffs. And their season actually still isn't quite over. There's a couple games remaining. About half the teams have 1 game left, but all 16 teams have been decided for the playoffs at this point. So as far as the East is concerned, in the Atlantic Division, Lehigh Valley, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Charlotte, and Providence are all in. And curiously, I got a text message today. I don't know if you got a text message because you've bought tickets for the Charlotte Checkers before, haven't you?
Yes.
I got a text message from the Charlotte Checkers today.
Yes.
Asking me if I was going to go to a playoff game.
I did. I got it yesterday.
You got it. You got one. Okay.
Yep.
From who was it? Here it is. Text message reads as follows. Hey, Wayne, this is Erica with the Charlotte Checkers. We made the playoffs! Exclamation. Games are this Friday and Saturday night. Can you make it? Smiley face. So that was kind of interesting.
Yes.
Minor league teams will do whatever they can to get themselves into the playoffs.
I received the same text message.
Yep. So, yeah. Charlotte's in, Providence is in, Wilkes-Barre is in, and Lehigh Valley. And it looks like Charlotte is playing Wilkes-Barre in the first round of the playoffs.
That's right.
In that division. All right. In the North, Toronto, Syracuse, Rochester, and Utica are all in. And it looks like Toronto and Utica are playing each other, Syracuse and Rochester. I could have the matchups wrong, but that's what it looks like at this point. And then, of course, in the Atlantic, you got Wilkes-Barre and Charlotte playing each other. Providence and Lehigh Valley will be playing each other. Out west, you have Chicago, Grand Rapids, Manitoba, and Rockford representing the Central, with Chicago playing Rockford, Grand Rapids playing Manitoba in that playoff series. And in the Pacific Division, Tucson, Texas, Ontario, and San Jose all in. And Tucson will play San Jose, and Texas will play Ontario in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs there. So that's it for the American League. The other story I have is about the World Under 18 IHF or IIHF World Hockey Championships with the under 18 kids. Now, everybody that's playing on this under 18 tournament, none of these kids, I believe, have been drafted as of yet. There may be an exception here or there, but I know for all of Team USA, none of these kids have been drafted. It's basically, the Team USA is the U18 team that's playing in the North American Hockey League. They're playing that schedule.
Right.
So all the kids that are representing Team USA are all kids that will be drafted in June at some point in time. It's just a matter of when. And this tournament is actually taking place between 8 countries: USA, Finland, Russia, Sweden, Canada, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Switzerland, Belarus, France. I believe that's 10 teams, actually. So it's not exactly the World Juniors, because the World Juniors is your under 20. These are the under 18. So these are a bit younger kids than what we saw in the World Juniors, but the hockey is just as good. I don't know if they're streaming any of these games online or not. I think NHL Network is picking up a few of these games, but the games are being held in Russia, in Chelyabinsk and Magnitogorsk are the two, which are the arenas of Traktor and Metallurg Magnitogorsk. So those two arenas are hosting this tournament.
Very interesting.
So the games are being played essentially early in the day, our time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to be home in the morning and want to watch some pretty good hockey, you've got the World Under 18s going on. The games started today, and they go through basically the next 10 days. The 29th is the last day of that tournament. So be on the lookout for that. And there's links to the tournament website on the show notes to do that. But Canada and the U.S. have already played each other. Canada won that game, I believe, 6-4 in that one. But that's a pool play, so there's no bearing on the final result in that one. All right. That was my stories.
Very good. Very good, Wayne. I was going to say the same thing about the Checkers sending me a text yesterday, and that got me thinking as I was doing my minor league hockey minute. I was kind of glad to see that the Charlotte Checkers made the playoffs, and I wanted to give them a little love here and put them in my minor league hockey minute. An article written by their director of, and I forget his name, but gentleman we've actually seen at the press box when we were down there for the couple games we went to. I think he's the director of communications. Anyways, the article's entitled Checkers Checkers drawing on experience to fuel Calder Cup run. While they boast one of the youngest rosters in the AHL, several Checkers players have experience with the Calder Cup playoffs, a source that could prove beneficial for the squad moving into their 2018 postseason run. On the current Charlotte roster, 8 players have logged playoff games outside of the Checkers' first-round exit a season ago. Exactly how much postseason experience at this level ranges in the group from Josiah Didier, who appeared in 4 games for the St. John's Ice Cops last year, to Zach Stortini, who captured a Calder Cup in 2007 with the Hamilton Bulldogs. But regardless of the number of games, the consensus is that the AHL playoffs are an entirely different beast than the regular season. It's more desperate, especially in the first round where it's best of 5. And that's another thing. In the AHL, in the first round of the playoffs, it is best of 5.
That's right.
So they will dispatch of these playoff series in some cases very quickly and will be caught up to the NHL in no time. The NHL already having almost played through their first round. Said Philip Samuelson, who made a run to the Eastern Conference Final with the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins in 2012-2013, and that is Charlotte's first-round opponent. You certainly get to know your opponent playing them 5 times in a row. It changes a lot, said Brendan Kitchton, whose St. John's Ice Caps won the Eastern Conference in 2013-14. It's more of a grinding on the walls and dump and chase kind of game. It's a grind. Aside from the differences stylistically, a big thing that stands out about the AHL playoffs is just how much more taxing it can be for players. Last season's Calder Cup finals finished in June, meaning a championship run can tack on another 2 months of action. Managing that wear and tear is a critical part of keeping the team rolling until the end. You just have to keep an even keel, said Greg McKegg, who helped lead the Toronto Marlies to within a game of making the Calder Cup final in 2013-14. You can't get too high or too low. It's definitely a long process, so you have to take it one game at a time. If there's one thing the Checkers have heading into the postseason, it's momentum. Charlotte enters the playoffs as the league's hottest team, currently riding a 7-game winning streak and a 10-game point streak. Whether that momentum means anything carrying over from the regular season to the playoffs isn't a black and white issue, however. I think it's a hard reset, to be honest with you, said head coach Mike Vellucci. The regular season means nothing. Nobody has any points. Nobody has any goals. Nobody has any assists. It's a whole new season. It doesn't matter what our record was against them. It doesn't matter how many goals we scored. It only matters what we do in the playoffs. While only a handful of players have been parts of the long runs in the Calder Cup playoffs, Vellucci is quick to point out that there is no shortage of a winning pedigree in the Checkers locker room. A lot of our guys have playoff experience too, he said. Foegele and Ray and Gauthier won their league championships in the Canadian Hockey League. Ned won a championship. Smitty's won. Guys have won where they've been. Not at the pro or American League level, but they've won championships before. So from that standpoint, we have a lot of winners that know what it takes to win in a series. Still, the Checkers will surely tap into those who have been there before to help power what they hope is a long Calder Cup run. And that is my minor league hockey minute for the week. Good luck to the Charlotte Checkers.
Yep, and a number of the Checkers actually were playing with the Carolina Hurricanes at season's end, and they sent down Valentin Zykov, who actually had been playing all year with Charlotte, got called up late in the year. Warren Foegele, the same thing. Roland McKeown. Let's see who else is on that team that has played in Carolina. Marcus Kruger. Greg McKegg, Hayden Fleury, who basically played all season in Carolina, got sent down because he's eligible to be sent down without having to pass through waivers. So that'll give him some much-needed playoff experience. So yeah, there's a number of checkers there that have seen some a little bit of time, but a lot of time in the case of Hayden Fleury. So yeah, good luck to the checkers. And hey, if they make a deep run, as things slow down here in the NHL, we may make one more trip down there.
Well, we might. I don't. It's not in the cards for this round. Maybe it is in for the second round if they can make it.
Yep. We'll have to take it play it by ear, but it'd be nice to go watch the playoff hockey. It'd be nice for sure, even though it's American League. It's nice to be able to have that relatively close by for us. All right, let's move on to our picks of the week and get this thing wrapped up because I got a game to go watch.
I hear you.
Let's see. You have a story about what? What was your story about?
My story is actually a lot of firsts and the Elias Sports Bureau type records regarding the Golden Knights and Marc-Andre Fleury specifically.
Yep.
I don't know whether you want me to go first on this or whether you should lead. Looks, Wayne, to me like your story is going to be a little bit better. So why don't you let me get mine out of the way?
Sure.
And you go ahead and close her out.
All right.
My pick of the week is Fleury. Golden Knights make more playoff history. Goalie, first-year team join elite company. Now, and before I get going on this, I got to say, I am, with every game, I am more and more shocked at what is happening in the NHL with this particular team. It is mind-boggling that they knocked out the Los Angeles Kings, and really, LA didn't really have a chance. They scored 3 goals in the whole series. So even though the games were close and 2 of them were 1-0 shutouts, it's really amazing what the Vegas Golden Knights have done. This article really kind of lends itself to that. But Marc-Andre Fleury, I would think you would have to say now, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, he has pretty well solidified himself. I know we talked earlier, maybe a week or two ago, a podcast or two ago, about Roberto Luongo and how we both feel he'll make it.
Yep.
This is another goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, who is probably going to make the Hall of Fame.
Oh, he absolutely will.
And you're watching someone playing for a second team, much like Patrick Roy in his heyday. It would be something to see this. Switches teams. The Pittsburgh Penguins really couldn't keep him. Not that they didn't want him, they couldn't keep him. And he goes over, and if Vegas wins the Stanley Cup, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. I may go buy a Las Vegas hockey shirt, but I don't know what we're going to do here. But anyways, let me read this article. Marc-Andre Fleury helped the Vegas Golden Knights make more history in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Fleury, a 3-time Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins, made 31 saves Wednesday to help the Golden Knights dispatch the LA Kings 1-0 and complete a sweep in the Western Conference first round. It's the second time in as many seasons that Fleury has shut out an opponent in a series-clinching game. He was in goal when the Penguins defeated the Washington Capitals 2-0 in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference second round last year, and boy, did that ever shoot down at the Capitals. That game was it really, really, really hurt them. Fleury finished with 127 saves on 130 shots, a .977 save percentage for the series. The clincher was his 66th playoff win, moving him past Dominik Hasek for sole possession of 11th place on the NHL's all-time win list in the playoffs. The shutout was the 12th of his NHL career, tying Terry Sawchuk for 10th place in playoff history. Vegas is the 15th team in NHL history and the second in as many years to allow 3 goals or fewer in a 4-game series. 6 teams have achieved the feat during the past 39 years, including the Predators against the Blackhawks in 2017, just last year. Only one team, the Ottawa Senators in 2002, has allowed 3 goals or fewer in a series that lasted more than 4 games. The Senators limited the Philadelphia Flyers to 2 games in a 4-1 series win in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. The sweep by the Golden Knights is not only the first of its kind for a professional team in any of the 4 major sports in its inaugural season, but also a rare feat for any team in the Stanley Cup playoffs over the last 10 years. Since 2009, 12.5% of the series have ended after 4 games. The Golden Knights joined the 1970 Pittsburgh Penguins as the only team to sweep their first playoff series and is the first to do so in its inaugural season. The 1914 Boston Braves are the only other team in the 4 major sports to sweep its first playoff series that it ever played. They swept the Philadelphia Athletics in the 11th season baseball held the World Series to determine a champion. The Elias Sports Bureau notes that the only other team to sweep a best-of-7 series in its first trip to the postseason was the NBA's Portland Trail Blazers, who swept the LA Lakers in 1977, Portland's 7th season in the league. And that's my pick of the week this week. Just some notes on what actually the amazing Vegas Golden Knights are truly an outstanding team, but just what they're accomplishing. Some amazing records being set.
Yeah, and the records keep piling up for them. It's just a story that's been going on all year. It's unbelievable what's going on there, and I just hope the fans in Vegas realize how fortunate they are to be witnessing such an amazing season that they're having, because not every season's that easy for every team, for sure.
Oh, you're right. And Wayne, you're probably along the same lines as what you're saying. If they got swept by the San Jose Sharks in the second round, they ought to hold their heads high, and those fans ought to get they've had a run that no one will forget.
Yep. For sure.
And you're right. They've been very fortunate to see one of the greatest things in sports. If they were even swept, if they were blown out by the San Jose Sharks, which I don't think is going to happen in the second round, they have truly had an amazing run that I will never forget.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, mine takes kind of a lighter approach to everything. We're going to finish with a little bit of comedy here. And I kind of saw this over the past couple of days anyway. Of course, the Devils have had home games in games 3 and 4 this week in their series. And we saw a return of an old Seinfeld character to this series. And the headline reads, "Painted Putty supports the team by removing his shirt, pumping up the Devils fans. Actor Patrick Warburton channels his Seinfeld character before Game 4. And, of course, the article's from NHL.com, no specific author. You got to let them know you're out there. It's the playoffs. Patrick Warburton, the actor who played overzealous New Jersey Devils fan David Putty on the iconic sitcom Seinfeld, was in the building for Game 4 of the Eastern Conference first-round series against the Lightning on Wednesday. Warburton went to the game in full character, sporting the famous Putty face paint that had his TV girlfriend Elaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, questioning her choice of boyfriends during the 1995 episode of the series appropriately titled The Face Painter. This is always a lot of fun to be here. I've been a Devils fan since they adopted me, Warburton told NHL.com. The Devils are my team, and it's always great to be back here. Earlier this season, a handful of Devils players wore T-shirts with Putty's painted face on them. Warburton tweeted his approval then and was fully into it on Wednesday night, posting a selfie to his Instagram account before the game. The actor even went as far as to paint a giant red letter D on his chest, just as he did at the end of the episode. He pulled his jersey off and screamed, "Don't mess with the Devils. We're the Devils. We can beat anybody. The Devils."
Hey, that's pretty good, Wayne.
Yeah. Into the mic to fire up the Prudential Center crowd. So he was going over the PA on this one. Because, hey, you got to support the team. So yeah, I saw this. I'm like, oh my God, they brought back that character. So of course, if you think back, this episode aired in 1995. That was the year the Devils went all the way and won their first Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that's right. They won immediately after the Rangers. That is correct. Martin Brodeur.
Yep.
Winning.
So the Devils were a real good team back then. So.
Yep.
So yeah, just an interesting tidbit. There's always stories like this that come out during the playoffs of these. Last year was the Dart Guy. Remember Dart Guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yep.
He had his face painted blue and white, and his beard was dyed blue. He had a big, huge beard, and he's at the Maple Leafs games with a cigarette hanging out his mouth, an unlit cigarette, but it was there the whole game, and the internet named him Dart Guy, and he's actually since gone on. He has his own podcast now that's on Sportsnet Radio in Canada. He's got a weekly show where he goes on there and talks Leafs hockey with his buddies and other members of the press that follows the Leafs. So yeah, he's basically taken that character and turned it into a regular gig there. And I'm sure it's a paying gig if he's working for Sportsnet in Toronto.
Amazing.
So yeah, these stories always come out during the playoffs. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Of all these crazy fans. So I'm surprised we haven't seen one come out of Vegas yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am surprised about that.
Now there's one team.
That's a good point.
There's one team, and I can't remember who it is. Maybe somebody can tweet me and tell me, because I'm watching a lot of games. And there was one game I was watching where right next to the players' bench, I can't remember which players' bench it was, but you know those seats that right there next to the bench, there was a fan dressed in full astronaut uniform, complete with the helmet and the visor that comes down over the helmet, you know, and it's a mirrored visor, so you can't tell who is inside the suit. But there was a fan, and it was distracting because the visor has got that gold color. You know how they put that coating on the visor to block all the UV rays when they're out there spacewalking out in space. Well, there was a fan basically in one of these spacesuits sitting there the whole game just watching the game, and you just see nothing but the helmet just turning and watching the game. Really, really weird to see some of these people out there. And there's always someone crazy when Columbus scores a goal. You know, they show the quick shot of the cannon firing. Well, if you're watching a game in Columbus and you see the cannon fire, look behind the cannon. There's always some crazy character just behind the cannon in view of the camera when they show it, doing something crazy.
Yeah. I'm going to have to do that. I have never really paid attention to that, but I will from now on.
Yeah, next time you see it, when you see, and it only flashes for a second, but you'll see somebody's doing something weird just beyond the cannon as it fires. Something they do there. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, let's get this thing wrapped up because I got a game to go watch. It's approaching midpoint of the game, and it's 1-1 right now as we speak. Boston game. We'll go ahead and wrap this up and get so we can both go watch the second half of these two games, and we'll go from there.
There you go.
And then I'll probably edit the podcast after both games are done, and get it out to the world hopefully by Friday morning. So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. And until next week, Steve, we'll talk to you later.
Wayne, have a great week. Good luck to your Bruins. And we look forward to getting back here next week and talking hockey again. And do not, please remember me in your prayers. I do not want another hurricane coming anywhere around North Carolina.
Or a tornado.
Tornado. Pardon me.
Yeah, and stuff like that tends to happen this time of year down here. So, yeah. Hopefully neither one of us get hit by one directly, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's have a good night, Steve, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, Wayne.
All right. Have a good night. All right.
That was good. I know you got to get going. So
I've been watching. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been watching the game every chance I've gotten.
I haven't been noticing, but I'm glad we got through. I know you
got
to
1-1, but Toronto's pretty much outplaying Boston at this point. I don't know.
Really?
It's making me nervous. Yeah.
Toronto's good, man. They're good.
Making me real nervous.
And they did it.
That other game. I think that other game's on USA.
Yeah, there's only 2 tonight. That's right.
Yeah, there's only 2 tonight, and they're both early. So.
Yeah. So, okay, well, let me let you go then.
Okay.
And things should be different next week as far as my schedule. Maybe we'll get back to Wednesday doing it. I was in the cooler this week. Yeah. So, but anyways, good working with you. And I will definitely see you next week. I'll be in touch though throughout the week. We'll text stuff. Yeah. Okay. You too. Have a good night, Wayne. All right.